Krueger, Ryan Smith, and Steve Whyche from the NFL Network as we get you ready for the Niners and the Chicago Bears. Week 1 in the NFL is here, and Steve is with us via YouTube. And Steve, I'm not sure what that noise was, but Steve, let's talk a little bit about the 49ers. Obviously, the 49ers are a huge story right now because they're an iconic franchise, and obviously the Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance, if you want to call it a soap opera, is front and center in one of the main subplots around the NFL right now. Give us kind of the league view. You know, we're in the market, so it's hard to get perspective on this. What's the league view on how the 49ers have handled this? Are they being viewed as botching this or screwing this up, or are they being held in a more favorable light around the league? How's it being viewed?
Well, they're not being viewed as botching it. I mean, this is something that everybody knew was going to happen when they made the move, when they gave up basically, 4 or 5 picks last year to draft Trey Lance as high as they did. And so the only thing that really got botched is when Jimmy Garoppolo had to have shoulder surgery after the season, which prevented him from getting traded. I mean, they were very upfront. Jimmy, we're going to trade you, and he was good with it. And then he had the shoulder surgery, and now there were no takers. So he redoes his contract. And I know everybody's saying, oh, this is the perfect contract for him to be a backup quarterback. No, if you look at the economics of it, it is the perfect contract to still trade, right? Let's say Kirk Cousins or somebody gets hurt in week 2 or 3. They've got a very tradable contract, which wasn't the case before when Jimmy would have cost the team $24 million had they acquired him in a trade. Now it's going to cost them, $6.5–7 million, which is very affordable. So from that perspective, it's clearly not botched. I think everybody is asking themselves, okay, this is a roll of the dice, taking a guy in Trey Lance in his second year who's barely played football for the past 2 years and putting him on a Super Bowl-ready roster. Like, is he someone who's going to pull them back, or is he someone who's going to take them to the next level? Because the Niners very much, and they've done this twice in their history, when they sent away Joe Montana for Steve Young, because, okay, Steve Young's the guy who's going to continue our winning ways. And then about 10 years ago, Colin Kaepernick is the guy who's going to take us beyond the precipice to which Alex Smith took us. So it's weird how it's kind of repeated itself for a third time.
And it's Soldier Field. Kaepernick's first start was in Soldier Field. It's
at Soldier Field, and it's where Jimmy Garoppolo is from. That was his hometown team. So, it's just really intriguing because you watch Trey Lance, you're like, okay, he can make throws that Jimmy Garoppolo can't make. He can make runs that Jimmy Garoppolo can't make. Jimmy's just the nicest guy in the world who everybody loves. He's a pretty damn good player, but his durability issues are the main reason, I think, why the Niners are moving on.
I couldn't agree more. And, I think a lot of people are running with, especially kind of the people that are just, anti-Jimmy Garoppolo is sort of their thing. They're saying, oh, no team wanted him. Oh, he can't be traded. It's like, no, the shoulder surgery prevented all that from happening. And meanwhile, while he was rehabbing, the quarterback musical chair started and everybody sat down, and then there was no home for Jimmy. That's just how it was. And also, Lair, this is interesting. And I don't know if you can shed a little bit more light on it, but Steve actually said on NFL Now that Jimmy Garoppolo is one of the best humans he has ever covered in his life.
Yep.
So,
I mean, there's not anybody who's ever met him who's going to disagree with that.
Right. Yeah.
So solid guy.
Anybody who's ever met him will disagree with that. He's a pro's pro, but he's also a world-class human being.
And what did you make of that Mike Silver report, like with the phone and all? Because that was one thing that I thought was weird. Is like everybody says he's the greatest guy ever, but then all of a sudden that report comes out that he's been ghosting them this whole time, and it just seemed odd and weird, and I'm not sure.
Yeah, when he went away to work out for the offseason, how they couldn't get in touch with him and things like that.
Right.
Well, look, I'm really tight with Mike Silver. He ain't pulling that stuff out of his butt. That's information. That's information he's getting from the team, from Don Yee, Garoppolo's agent. I don't know, but somewhere in that circle, he's getting that information. If it happened, it happened. But a lot of guys do that, to their teams. They may not necessarily ghost them, but they might not be anywhere to be found once the offseason hits. They may pick up the phone. They may stay in communication. But I mean, imagine being Jimmy Garoppolo. You took this team to the Super Bowl. You didn't take them, but you were the quarterback of the team that went to the Super Bowl. And then what? 2 years later, they're giving up the farm to trade for your replacement. Then you get this team, you help get this team to the NFC Championship game. And they're like, yeah, we're done with you. And I mean, it wasn't like they got their butts kicked in the NFC Championship game. Jimmy did have a couple picks, though. So, but they just feel that they've got somebody who can get them beyond, much like Jim Harbaugh thought that Colin Kaepernick could get the Niners beyond what Alex Smith set up. And it worked.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, the Niners were 5 yards away from a Super Bowl win over the Ravens in New Orleans. How do you view the NFC competition? Because I see this thing. I know Trey Lance on paper probably should not lead a team to the Super Bowl, but I don't see the roster that competes necessarily with the 49ers. It seems like they have one of, if not the best roster in the conference.
They've got their roster talent-wise, they're probably within the top four. But every one of those teams has a question mark. Nobody's got a better roster than the Rams, right? They've got quarterback, they've got the receivers, they've got the running backs, they've got the defensive front, they've got the linebackers now with Bobby Wagner, they got dudes in the secondary. Some questions on the offensive line, but not like other teams, right? Niners have some questions on the offensive line.
Yep.
It's just that it's at the most important position with Trey Lance, but so what? Kyle Shanahan, pretty damn good coach, man. And as much as we keep talking about Trey Lance has to work wonders, this is a run-first offense. So the run's got to work for the whole offense to work. When you look at the rest of the NFC, I think the Packers are, their wide receivers are a question mark, but they're really strong everywhere else. Offensive line's pretty good. Defense is loaded, right? That defense for the Packers is loaded. Very good running backs. Tampa Bay, that interior offensive line is like, whoa. I mean, I've talked to a lot of coaches in the NFL, and they're like, man, if you're able to get that pressure inside on Tom Brady, he's not the guy who's going to bounce it outside the pocket. He's got to step up and throw, and this could get a little tedious for him. It really could. So we'll see. The Saints roster is pretty damn strong too, but they've got a question: can Jameis Winston bounce back? So those are the teams right there. I think there's two other rosters. I think the Eagles are really freaking loaded at all levels, and they've got a really good offensive line. And the Vikings are a team that I don't think we're given enough conversation to. In terms of their overall talent, especially when you've got someone like Justin Jefferson, who can absolutely light up a defense.
Yeah, and so kind of following up, similar question. So what teams in the NFC do you think even have a possibility of making it to the Super Bowl? So you mentioned the Rams, Niners,
Tampa
Bay, Green Bay.
Philadelphia.
I think they could win. There's definitely a possibility that they could, have the best record, and then they get the bye, and things could work out. I agree with that.
Yeah, Philadelphia is really strong in terms of their roster. Again, and the Saints. I mean, if Jameis is halfway decent, I mean, that defense is a real one. I mean, they're like the Niners in terms of being able to intimidate, have linebackers who can run and hit and cover, and their secondary. I don't know what's going to happen with this Marcus May incident. How that's going to hurt their secondary. Because remember, they lost Marcus Williams, too, in free agency to Baltimore. So Ty Matthews back there, but he's got to have somebody else next to him who could play. They're hoping it was Marcus May, but we'll see if there's any discipline that comes out of his recent incident. But those to me are the teams. I'm not – again, I am not discounting the Vikings here. I mean, there's teams we don't talk about. That's a team that could really get going, man. If Kevin O'Connell, the first-year coach, can have that, that good old Sean McVay horseshoe like Zach Taylor did with the Bengals, we'll see.
It's funny, but this is the time of year we talked a lot about bust out players and teams. On the Niners, I like Javon Kinlaw and Danny Gray. I think Kinlaw potentially could really take off. Gray, Trey Lance throws a pretty deep ball, and Gray's got elite speed. I'm sure you've been in a bunch of camps and talked to a bunch of different players. Do you have a bust out or breakout, maybe a surprise player or two or team that's on your radar, Steve, going into the regular season?
Oh, sure. Well, first off, can we also give some, come to the Niners, some bust out the odds, the linebackers not named Fred Warner?
Yes, Azeez Al-Shaair, Dre Greenlaw.
I mean, Al-Shaair, my God.
Impressive.
That dude is so good. And then Dre Greenlaw is just so fast. And when, he gets there, he arrives. He is not knocking on your door. He's kicking it in.
Right.
So, I love him. He's one of my favorite players in the NFL. Had the player of the year a couple of years ago against Seattle when he made the tackle at the goal line. So when you talk about, stud players right there, I know it sounds kind of obvious, but a guy who I've seen and who people have seen in joint practices who they say is really going to take off, it's going to be Trevor Lawrence after the debacle that was Jacksonville last year, the first overall pick at quarterback. I think he's going to take a significant leap. So that's a player to look out for. I mean, if he's healthy, I think Kwity Paye, the pass rusher for the Indianapolis Colts, having Yannick Ngakoue on one side and DeForest Buckner on the interior in his second year. I think he's somebody who really could, kind of jump off the radar a little bit. Player, again, he was second team All-Pro, but nobody talks about him, is A.J. Terrell, cornerback for the Atlanta Falcons. Dude's a stud, big physical player, got a lot of Jalen Ramsey skill set ability. So he's another guy. I guess we can't say kind of a bust out player because he's already really good. And he kind of got me on that one. Some guys I'm thinking of is Gabe Davis is another guy, the wide receiver for the Bills,
he's been really good.
Who's really jumped out.
What about rookies? Do you have any rookies that you have a strong opinion on? Maybe outside of the the Hutchinsons of the world. Any
that dude. First off, I've seen him for I do Falcons preseason games. And their first game was against Detroit. The first two plays of the game, I mean, he makes plays. He chases Marcus Mariota downfield, catches him, and puts a lick on him. And I was like, he came from across the field and did that, and then he busted up another. But he's real.
What a talent!
He is real. I mean, that guy is
family. I've never seen such a supportive fam. Like they're all freaking football players and beauty queens, and it's just
there's quite a few of those in the NFL. You'd be surprised. There's quite a few of those in the NFL. Wow, in terms of rookies, I think Drake London. The wide receiver, now we'll see if he's going to play week one. He banged up his knee against the Lions. His basketball skills. He's got Calvin Johnson size, but he's got great feet, right? So he can route guys up. That way right there. I'm trying to think. James Cook, second round running back for Buffalo.
Dalvin's little brother.
I mean, I know they're talking about a three-headed monster with Singletary and Zach Moss, but man, watching that dude in the preseason, he's tougher. I think he's tougher than what people think. He's definitely fast. Receiving ability, and in that offense, he might end up being an absolute monster. So there's a lot of rookies out there, but I mean, Aiden Hutchinson's the one though. He's the dude I saw was like. I mean, I know Trayvon Walker was the first overall pick, and he's one of those dudes you look at. You're like, I don't see many dudes like him. But for immediate impact, Aiden Hutchinson, man. I mean, I'm telling you, that guy is different.
I think when we were doing our NFL draft coverage, I called him, and this is not a slight at all because Bosa is so incredible. I think I called him Kirkland brand Bosa. And
you may want to take that back.
No, I'm sticking with it. I think Bosa is going to be Defensive Player of the Year, and you know what?
He's got a damn good shot.
Costco's a great store, and Kirkland makes some really high quality products. So,
Steve, tell us a little bit about the Chicago Bears. The Niners' first week opponent here is the Bears. Matt Eberflus comes over from Indy, new defensive coordinator. Not the same D line as we remember. Akeem Hicks and Mack and these guys, Getty Goldman, they're all moved on. But what do you think of the Bears? I mean, the Bears, I like their young GM Ryan Poles, and I think that they had a pretty decent draft. We're all looking for Fields to kind of take the next step. What are you hearing about Chicago?
Well, first off, the coaching staff, just based on the preseason, they seem to have a blueprint. Whereas last year, when Fields came in, the coaches were in survival mode and just really not giving them a fair opportunity to do things. They've got a pretty good offensive line where they can run the ball. That's going to be huge. But otherwise, you got Mooney, good receiver. But this is a team that does not have a ton of top-shelf talent. They're going to compete. But at some point, you've got to have players make plays, and who's that guy for the Bears? You lose Allen Robinson. Maybe they'll surprise me, but there's one of those teams like, man, I really hope Justin Fields doesn't get scarred going through a season like this. And it's weird because, you've got someone like Trey Lance who we've got all these questions about, but my God, he's got a soft pillow to sleep on with that roster, right?
Yeah, he's got a lot of support.
Justin Fields is on like 2 wooden boards on the ground. Again, I'm not trying to be disparaging, but I'm just kind of like, you look at what they're surrounding him with, and this might be a rookie year all over again. He looked good in the preseason, so hopefully it's not. But he got 17 games against real dudes like the Niners now.
I think they're only favored in 2 games this year. And I think I read off the stats yesterday. I'll try and find them. But in terms of like money allotted to the different positions, they're like 31st in offensive line, 30th in wide receivers, 29th in running backs or something like that. So just no help at all. Exactly what we'd expect.
Yeah, seriously, that's competing in a regatta with a kayak.
What do you think of Hard Knocks this year? Dan Campbell is just, I think, one of the stars of the summer in a lot of ways.
Hell yeah, he was.
He's a character, man.
His whole staff. Well, first off, when he put his staff together last year.
Deuce Staley's been great.
Yeah. When he put his staff together last year, when they had Anthony Lynn, who is now the Niners running back coach and assistant head coach, I was like, man, that's a good staff. When you've got Aaron Glenn, who's going to be a head coach in the next year or two as your DC, widely respected. He hires Aubrey Pleasant as his passing game coordinator on defense. He comes over from the Rams. They've got a whole lot of Rams influence right there. Brad Holmes, their general manager. A lot of front office guys from the Rams. Ray Agnew, who's a dude who pounded the table years ago for Aaron Donald when they were going to go in another direction. He's in Detroit. So they've got an influence, but that staff is really good. My whole thing that I wonder about, though, covering the league as long as I have and things like that, is, do you really want to hear your coach's voice that much? Mm-hmm. And if you've got a young team, I think that's okay, like the Lions, because they clearly have bought in. But a veteran team, I don't know if it works. So we'll see. But I think the Lions are going to, last year, 3-13 or 3-14, I think, or 3-13-1. I forget what it was, but they put some bruises on some people. This year, some of those bruises are going to turn into wins.
Last one for me. Maybe Rye has one more for you, but do you do Super Bowl predictions? I'm going Niners, Bills. I think the 49ers are the best team in the NFC. I think Buffalo, it's just their time. And I like their off-season additions. The old Chris Berman special, Niners and Bills. What are you going with, or do you have a pick?
It's worthless right now. I think the Rams get back.
Wow!
I think they're going to add Odell in December to that receiving crew, and I think it's the Chiefs, man. I know they're not trendy because they lost Tyreek Hill. Andy Reid has reinvented his teams over and over. They made some needed changes on defense. You had, Ty Matthew, losing him in the secondary is tough. Lost a corner, but they replaced him with some really good young talent. drafted well. Karlaftis looks like a real deal. I guess maybe what do you want to call him if if Aiden Hutchinson is the Kirklands, Nick Bosa, is Karlaftis like I don't know, the Ralphs, Nick Bosa.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I think the Chiefs, but when it's all said and done, as good as that division is, I think Andy Reid is worth the win at the right time when you look at all the coaches and the situations there. So I like the Rams and the Chiefs.
Ryan, you got one last one for Steve before we let him go?
And wait, I want to hear Ryan. I want to hear Ryan's Super Bowl.
Yeah, who you got, Ryan?
Oh, I got the Ravens. First of all, my final four, which I haven't said yet, but my final four is Kansas City. They're going to play on the road in Baltimore. Then the other side, I've got Green Bay hosting the Niners. Another Lambeau game for the Niners. Man. This time it's I think it's going to be Trey. And then I've got Ravens, Niners, Super Bowl, Ravens winning it. But yeah, I love what you're saying about the Chiefs though, because I was just saying this yesterday. People are sleeping, and it's kind of I could see a scenario where Mahomes kind of has the Steph Curry 2022 type year where it's like, all right, everybody slept on me. Now I've just got a team that's solely built around me. And you know what? Like I don't need Tyreek Hill. You know what? You're talking about Herbert and the Chargers. They didn't even make the playoffs last year. Like Raiders. And then, the Denver Broncos. So I'm hearing a lot of people predicting Broncos to win the Super Bowl. So, I love that. I mean, Andy Reid always takes care of the, first 4 weeks of the season. He's just unbelievable. And you just got to get off to that good start. And then I think every year since Alex Smith was there, they've had at least a 5-game winning streak during the season. So I think it's safe. I like the
So who do you got? You got Ravens over who?
Real
Packers
quick. He said Ravens. Real quick, man.
Yeah.
Ravens and Packers in the Super Bowl, which is like death to fantasy footballers because there's not one wide receiver on any either of those teams. Maybe Juju Smith-Schuster, who makes you go like, yeah, that's going to happen.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah. I feel like Rashad Bateman is the top of the top.
There you go. It'll be the tight end. It'll be the tight end Super Bowl.
It's funny. I asked somebody around the league who I trust this week for their bold prediction, and he said that the Rams aren't going to even be the best team of LA. But that's obviously a guy who's feeling good.
Though.
Yeah, the Chargers. Telesco is a great young GM for sure. If the head coach stops going for it on so many fourth downs, you got to like the Chargers kind of quietly.
They got the best roster. They have the best roster coming into the NFL. They have coming into the season. They have the most complete roster.
Yeah. No,
it's exciting.
You go through it. It is insane. Okay, and then you look at the Bears roster and you're like, my God, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But okay, this is my last question. Okay, so just think in your mind right now. Think about the scenario of the Niners making the Super Bowl this year. Okay, when you close your eyes and you think about it, it's February 2023. Niners are in the Super Bowl. Who's the starting quarterback? Who's the one who was able to bring them there?
If the Niners go to the Super Bowl, it is all about the Trey area.
All right, I like that.
I mean, if they get to the Super Bowl, it's Trey Lance.
Oh man,
yeah. I mean,
Steve? Have you met Trey? Have you had any personal
interactions? I've not had the types of conversation. Only in news conference settings. Whereas with Jimmy, I've had a lot of conversations, but with Trey, only in news conference setting.
Yeah, you're going to love this kid. I mean, he's just so wired, right? I used to scout in the Canadian League and scouted his father, Carlton, when he was with Saskatchewan, and just great. The old saying, apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. You got good mom and dad, you got to have a good kid more times than not. And he's solid. He's solid. You're going to like him.
I look forward to it. I mean, he's from Minnesota. I'm a Minnesota native, so I look forward to meeting him.
Hey, Steve, thanks again for your time. We really appreciate it, and have a phenomenal year this year for the NFL Network. We really enjoy your work. Keep it rolling, man.
Yeah, I want to circle back for that Super Bowl pick too, my man. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve. Steve Whyche, everybody.